On today's show, is Anthony Davis ready to step up as a number one? How will Kyrie Irving recover, and will he return? Got a question for every single Maverick on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm going to get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with the dog blood.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer. Make it Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Joining me, my co-host, the cutest one in sports. It's my dog, by the way. If you're listening on the podcast, it's my dog. It's not Isaac or Slightly. They're cute and all, but you know. Today's episode, I'm going to get into a question for every single Dallas Mavericks player that is on the roster and a couple that have player options. And we got big questions. I think Max Christie, there's a huge question about him going into this offseason. Klay Thompson. And I'm going to go through the guards with Kyrie and Brandon Williams. They're kind of aligned in the offseason right now in their questions. But I want to start here. Let's start with the bigs, because I think the Mavericks are going to now build themselves off of their bigs. And I think they're going to make them a strength of this team. The bigs. You've got, obviously it starts with Anthony Davis, but Lively and Gaffford. And so I want to start with those bigs and start with what the questions are for these guys. Anthony Davis, talked about it with Dana Larson the other day, is now stepping into the number one role. Is he ready to step into that number one role? That's my big question for him. And to me, when I start to answer that question, I start to think, I think he has the demeanor of a star player. We already know that he's a top 10 player in the NBA. We've gone through it. We've gone through the list of like, all right, is he there? What kind of impact is he giving? He's giving top 10 player impact on the court. And you go back to my conversation with Dana a couple days ago, I'm going to kind of throw out a lot of things we saw last season because I think that he was put in an impossible choice, an impossible situation. Coming off of an injury, then he gets injured again into this wild Mavericks, end of the Mavericks season with the way that just everything went down. I'm just going to put it like that because the players even mentioned that there's a cloud hanging over this season. And he wanted to come back. The demeanor of a star player is, hey, I'm going to be there to lead this team, to be there for this team. He already made that choice and did that to come back from the injury when he did. The Mavericks themselves, the front office and everybody in the organization were trying to say, hey, AD, just shut it down. Let's go home. Go ahead and we'll just tank out the rest of the season and let's just get on with it. And AD said, no, we still got something to play for. And I think that is admirable. And I respect that so much from a star player. And I think that's the demeanor of a star player. So is AD ready to be a star player? Does he want to be a star player? I think that's something that is a fair question for him. But I think we've kind of already answered it. And the answer is yes. That he does want to be that. He does want to stand up and be that number one player. I think he's excited about the opportunity. You saw him in some of the videos of this, the Mavs social team posted of him coming to Dallas and his introductory press conference. You even go back to go to our intro, like the first quote that we put in our intro.
I'm going to get a city life back.
I'm going to give this city life back. That's what he wants to do for this team. And I think he has that star player mentality, which is the first step of it. And we know he has the talent. The health is going to be the big question. And it has been for Anthony Davis almost his whole career. And I'm just hopeful that the Mavs did some due diligence. That took Nico, months to make this trade. They did some due diligence and say, all right, well, we think that Anthony Davis can stay healthy enough to be that number one player. He's already motivated. And I think one of I think one of the unsung motivated things, he wants to play the four and the Mavs have bigs. He's finally getting what he wants. He's asked for this for so many years, and he's honestly played really well for the Lakers without having those bigs. He was playing with Jackson Hayes. Look at what Jackson Hayes is doing in the playoffs right now, And Anthony Davis has played with those centers and played with those people for a long time, and centers that weren't as good as him or, not centers at all, and having him play center. And he's accepted that and said, all right, well, I'd rather do this, but yeah, it's fine. I'll go out there. And he still played like a top 10 player. But now he's getting what he wants. And I think giving a player like that, who already has the demeanor of a star player, giving him what he wants and playing him next to these bigs, I think is going to be very motivating. And I think is going to unlock him in a way. And so is AD ready to be a number one? I think so. We've also seen that Anthony Davis can get his own shot in a way. And that's kind of kind of clear for star players. You start looking around the league and you're like, all right, who's a star player in the league? And you just start going through them and you're like, even the Jokic, Giannis, who are bigs, who are like 7-footers, they can get their own shot. Everybody that's a star player really can get their own shot in the NBA. Who's a star player right now that can't get their own shot? It's really hard to find. You have to go all the way down the list to like a Bam Adebayo. You know, like, oh, I don't know if that a Draymond Green, I guess. He's a star in a different way. But like even a Towns or in all the guards, obviously, Donovan Mitchell, SGA, Luka, Kyrie Irving. You start to go through the Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, like all the star level players, Anthony Edwards. They all can get their own shot in a way. And I think that's key for a star player, especially the number one on a team. And especially if Anthony Davis is going to be the number one option for some months before Kyrie Irving comes back. And he'll be the number one option even when Kyrie Irving comes back, when Kyrie sits. And so I think that's crucial. That's going to be a big thing for the Mavericks to try and figure out this year. How can we develop an offense to help maximize Anthony Davis? Because for years, the Mavs had an offense that had a system that maximized everyone else. And now the system was Luka, and Luka was able to maximize other players. Now the system, how can the system maximize this player? It's like now we're doing the opposite of what they did for years. And so I think that's going to be a big adjustment for the Mavericks. But we've seen Anthony Davis get his own shot in a way. And I think that is something that is just a building block of, all right, he's the number one option. Let's roll with it. You can win with him. He's obviously he won a championship already. You know he can be a championship player. But is he ready to step up as the number one? He's been in LeBron's shadow basically for some years here. Then I moved to Dereck Lively, and then we'll do Daniel Gaffford. The question obviously for Dereck Lively is, can he stay healthy? I mean, he's played 58 games last year, 38 games this year, and 36 games last year, 55 games the year before. He's played 55 games last year, 36 games this past year. Jeez. It's 91 games total in 2 seasons and 82 games each season, potentially. It's not enough. Can he stay healthy is like the real question. But that's not really fun to talk about. And there's nothing really I can say except for he's had a lot of freak injuries. He got hit in the face. He got undercut. He got, the foot fracture. I mean, it's just like these are breaks, and it's not like soft tissue things that he's dealing with over. It's not like a calf strain, right? Where he's dealing with it over and over again. We saw Luka deal with that for a year. It's different. But it still has happened, and it's still a worthy question to ask. But then I think the question outside of injuries and health and unanswerable questions is, how does he play next to AD? And how does playing next to AD and without Luka change him as a player? It's going to be different. It's going to be different for Lively. The defense is going to be easier for him, I think. And I think that's something I'm excited to see when he's healthy and when AD is healthy and when they have a training camp and an off season to get together and work together and figure out this defense together. The defense, I think, is going to be even better. And I think it's going to be easier for Dereck Lively. That's something I'm excited to see. I was excited to see them come back and play. Even in the limited minutes we got to see them, they were both on a minutes restriction the whole time we basically saw them together, except for maybe the play-in games. And so I'm excited to see those guys play together. I'm still holding out on that. But how does it change him as a player? And that's I think the question that we have to answer for him. And I think for him, the offense is going to be different. We're going to see some doubles on AD. Can Lively take advantage of the short roll off of AD? Can we do a 5-4 pick and roll or 4-5 pick and roll where AD is the ball handler? Lively sets a screen and AD gets doubled, and then the short roll. Like, does it work the same kind of way? That's something we still need to answer because I don't think we saw enough of it last year, and it was compromised what we did see because of injuries and other things. For Daniel Gaffford, is he able to take another step in his game? Because at this point for the Mavericks, and I mean, has he even played a full season for the Mavericks yet? He's played total 86 games in the regular season for the Mavericks. So I guess he has played a full season now total. Played 29 games in the regular season before the finals run. Then 57 games this past year. But defensively, he knows. He said it several times. He said it to us at media day. He said it to, postseason, exit interviews and all that. He talked about, I need to get better defensively. I need to get better in switching and guarding on the perimeter and all that. That's a question that he needs to answer. And also rebounding next to AD. The Mavericks, if they're going to run with this and they're going to be the strength of their defense, their team is going to be these bigs, Anthony Davis, Dereck Lively, Daniel Gaffford, having 2 of them on the court basically at all times. they have to destroy in the rebounding category. And Gaffford has not been a super strong rebounder in his career. And that's something that he's got to get better at for the Mavericks in order to take advantage of the advantages that they have. They got to maximize their advantages where they have them. And then is he a playoff player? Because the Mavs went on that run. He played all 22 games, but he played 20 minutes a game in the playoff run. And he ended up at the end of it, was the minutes were going down. There were a series where he could play and couldn't play. I mean, second game of the Clipper series, he played 9 minutes. And then there are games where he played 22 and 25 and 27. And he did play a decent amount of that Minnesota series. He played going into it, 24 minutes a game. That's great. And then in the Celtics series, he just couldn't play. And that was a struggle. The Celtics are a different team, but you've got to be a different team and you got to be as good as a different team in order to win in a playoff series. So can he prove to be a full playoff player, 16-game player? And can he take another step defensively and rebounding to maximize the Mavs' advantages? Those are the questions I have for the bigs. Coming up, Kyrie Irving. How will he recover and return? Is Brandon Williams ready to step up into his spot? Talk about that and answer some of those coming up. Today's Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Monarch Money. I love Monarch Money. I use it a lot because I like to know where all my money is going between online shopping, eating out, entertainment, stuff like that. Things for my dog that I spend going to parks, treats, all kinds of different things that I have to pay for you. Yeah. I have to figure out where all that money is going. And so I use Monarch Money to figure out where all that stuff is going. You can connect to your investments, your account, spending all in one place. Stop managing your money, start building wealth. And you can do that with Monarch Money. Go and check it out right now. Go to monarchmoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. If you're watching on video, I just took my dog like 5 minutes to get that treat out of my hand. We've got a text line that you can subscribe to all throughout the summer. We'll be sending updates. We'll be doing Q&As and things like that. You can ask us questions. You can send us messages. And it's just kind of a great way to connect with the show and also support the show too. It is paid. And so it's something that helps support the show, keeps us going and keeps us doing more things. 214-643-8637. If you've been someone that's like, how do I support the show and help the show? That's a huge way to do it. 214-643-8637. Link in the description as well. All right. Questions for every single Mavericks player. Talked about the bigs. Let's go to Kyrie Irving. Huge questions. I mean, Lively's question was, can he stay healthy? Another unanswerable question. Kyrie's big question is also unanswerable. It's, will he re-sign? Will the Mavs sign him to an extension? We know that the Mavs want to sign him to a 3-year deal. They'll tear up his player option year, and they'll give him a 3-year deal to align him with Anthony Davis and obviously with Nico Harrison's deals for the Mavericks. That's what they want to do. What does Kyrie want to do? He's going to be out for a while next year. Does he want to bet on himself and say, all right, I'm going to go into free agency after this year. I think I can get the full max. Well, the Mavs offer him the full max. The Mavs have no other options if Kyrie Irving leaves. And we talked about that a couple days ago, is that the Mavs, their season kind of depends on Kyrie Irving and if he returns and if he makes it back. But then how will he recover? He's 33 years old right now, which is not old as a human, but it is as an NBA player, especially as a guard in the NBA. We've seen guards fall off all the time around this age. He'll be 34 in March of 2026. And that's around the time when people expect him to come back. I've seen fans and stands and people say, well, he's already walking, so this is not going to be a 12-month injury. It might not, but there's a difference between walking and playing NBA basketball. And also with an ACL, you can walk after you tear your ACL, you can walk off the court when that happens. We've seen guys do it in the NBA. But how will he return and recover? I think for Kyrie, his recovery, he does rely on that quick twitch. He does rely on the, driving past somebody, but he's never been like the blazing athlete where he's got to blow by you, and Anthony Edwards, where it's like, oh, he's just, his speed and power is just overwhelms you. Or the De'Aaron Fox type where he's got to be quick and get by you like that. Tyrese Maxey. His skills, I think, will translate to being an older guard. He's taking his shooting to another level. We've seen that with the Mavericks playing off of Luka. That was definitely a big thing. I think it's going to be even bigger next to AD. His shooting, got to take more threes, and that's what he's got to do as an aging guard anyway. Take more spot up threes. He'll get to the paint a little less. The Mavs will have less room in the paint for him to get to anyway. So like what the Mavs are going to ask him to do offensively, I think also caters to him being this aging, recovering from injury guard that people are worried about. And so how will he recover? They need him to be an all-star. They need him to be an all-star level player when he comes back. And that's a tall order to ask somebody. That is tough to ask someone with that injury, with that age and all that to be back. But I wouldn't put it past Kyrie. You can tell he's been invigorated by being in Dallas. I don't know how he's responded to the trade and all the backlash that the Mavs have faced and all that. And it seemed like he was excited to play with Anthony Davis, and obviously he's excited to do that. And does he see that as unfinished business? Or does he think, well, my unfinished business was to win a title with Luka in this Mavs team, and now they kind of threw that away? That's a question Kyrie will probably ask the Mavericks and ask himself. So then the topic goes to Brandon Williams, because the Mavs got to add somebody to replace or at least stopgap fill in for Kyrie Irving while he's going to be out. Could be to the All-Star break. And if it's the All-Star break, that's like middle of February. That's probably a safe thing to probably a safe timeline to give him. That means you've got to play October, November, December, January. You got 3 months of NBA basketball to play. Brandon Williams is the only other point guard on the roster right now. Spencer Dinwiddie, free agent. Dante Exum, free agent. Will they come back? I don't know. Will the Mavs sign them to minimum deals again? I don't know. That's a big question for the Mavericks. The Mavs are kind of like limited on roster space, though, if you start to look through it, because Brandon Williams has got a spot. It's a non-guaranteed spot, but he's got a spot. So then you go through the roster. Let's pencil in Kyrie, Klay, PJ, Anthony Davis, and Dereck Lively. That's your starting five. Then you got Gaffford, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, Caleb Martin, and then Brandon Williams coming off the bench. That's already 5 off the bench. Then you got Hardy, Omax Prosper, Dwight Powell comes back. You got the draft pick that they'll probably pick in the top 12. If all that stays the same and returns and comes back and plays for the Mavs, you got 1 spot left and then 3 two-ways. And so who is going to come back for the Mavericks, and who do they get? And if they don't get anybody, the guys on the roster right now, there's a lot on Brandon Williams' shoulders, and whoever the draft pick is, if it's a guard. So for Brandon Williams, my question for him is, how much does Dallas trust him? I think Isaac was right the other day when he said, we'll find out how much the Mavs trust Brandon Williams and expect out of Brandon Williams and anticipate that he grew this year. And the play that we saw from him throughout a lot of the end of the season, how much do they think that is real? We'll learn that depending on what contingency plan the Mavs bring in for Kyrie being out. Who fills in for Kyrie and how many? If all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're getting a Chris Paul and we're bringing back Exum and Dinwiddie and the draft pick as a guard, like they add 3 different options. Then we're like, all right, well, it doesn't seem like they trusted Brandon Williams that much. My guess is they'll split the difference. Maybe the draft pick will be a guard, but I think they'll definitely add another guard, maybe in a trade, maybe a free agent signing, and then Brandon Williams will be part of the answer. Because the other thing is you got to think about once you come back, once Kyrie comes back, then you don't want the roster to just be a glut of a bunch of guys that can't play. The roster is pretty deep, and I honestly think that that's a good thing for the Mavs. That it's deep, but it's deep in some areas. At wing, they're kind of set. At big, they're kind of set depending on injuries, and then guard, they're just not set at all. Which brings me to Jaden Hardy, who I have not even mentioned yet, but my question for him is, are the Mavs done with Hardy's development? I know a lot of Mavericks fans are like, all right, we're done. Let's move on from this guy. I don't think that he's going to be who we thought he was going to be or be who we expect him to be or anything like that. And I don't know that the Mavs are done with that. It seems like Jason Kidd was done with it. It seemed like he was done with Jaden Hardy. But I don't know if the Mavs are done with him. They just signed him to this extension over the offseason. We were like, all right, that's fine. Like it's a fine extension. I don't know that he's proven, but I guess it's good to have him on the roster. He's going to make $6 million next year, which is not big, but it's not nothing. It's about 4% of your cap next year. To me, I think Hardy is an amazing trade piece as far as like just adding $6 million to somebody. If you, let's say they decided package Najee Marshall for somebody else. You put Jaden Hardy with him, all of a sudden you go from Najee Marshall making $9 million, you can get a $15 million player just by adding Jaden Hardy in it. And I don't know, will he be a negative as a trade asset? I don't know. And so that's something that I'm interested in. Are the Mavs done with Jaden Hardy's development? For me personally, I'm done with Jaden Hardy as far as expecting him to eventually be a starting level player or even the 6-man type player. I just don't think that the ball handling and the decision making have gotten there with him. And so if I'm in the Mavericks, I use him as a trade piece or just use him as salary filler for this because, man, you've given him a lot of chances. They've thrown him out there in a lot of different environments, and it has been chaotic. Think about the situations he's been put in. So I'll give him this. He's been thrust into these situations. He was playing for an Ignite team, the G League Ignite team, right? That does no longer exist. Dramatic because it didn't work. Then he comes into the Mavericks. His rookie season, he dominates in the G League, gets brought up to the Mavericks. The Mavericks are floundering, missed the postseason. They bring in Kyrie. He's one of the guys on the roster that is confident enough to take a shot on the team. Like nobody else wants to shoot besides Luka and Kyrie and him at times. Tim Hardaway. And so he's on that team that had so much dysfunction, trading for Kyrie midseason and all that, upheaval. Then he's on a team that goes to the finals. And so his second year, he's expected to play. And he actually played well in the Minnesota Timberwolves series and played well in the playoffs. And then now this season where this trade happens and you start with Luka and Kyrie and then he gets hurt too. So I think my expectations have definitely lowered for him as a player for his career, but he's been through so much that even if he gets some stability and some roster stability, that it could be something that could help him because he's just been through so many different random crazy things. Like, can it calm down for a second for Jaden Hardy? Coming up, Klay Thompson and Max Christie. Max Christie, I think, is a big swing piece for the Mavericks, and I've got a big question about him. We'll talk about that and more coming up. All right, asking big questions of every single Dallas Mavericks player. For Klay Thompson, I'm going to start with how much can Dallas ask of him? Because if you're Klay Thompson, first of all, just hats off to you, man. 72 games, playing on a team that you thought Luka was going to be there, and you came to get spoon-fed shots, and then all of a sudden you're on this team where you've got to generate a lot of offense, and it's completely different than what you expected. He's 35 years old. He'll be 36 in February. He was the starting two guard for the Mavericks all season. He shot the ball really well. He added a lot. Veteran presence, stabilizing presence, championship experience for him. Didn't complain at all. He didn't complain until Tim McMahon asked him the question about if you knew what you knew now and you went back. He said, "Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me." He complained about that, but he's more complaining about Tim McMahon, which I found fun. But for Klay Thompson, how much more can they ask of him? And how much can they ask of him next season? Can you expect Klay Thompson to be a starting level, playoff level 2 guard at 36 years old? It's tough. He's had 2 major injuries himself that he had back to back. And can the Mavericks take a step forward if he's your starting level 2? We talked about this era now for the NBA. It's not just about who has the best star or the best 2 stars even. It's who has the least weak link in their roster and in their lineup in the playoffs. And for the Mavericks, if you're starting Kyrie and Klay Thompson and PJ and AD and Lively, like if that's your closing 5, you don't really have a good perimeter defender, or at least a point of attack defender. Like we talked about it all offseason. Can the Mavs add a point of attack defender to replace Derrick Jones Jr.? We talked about that all summer. And the Mavs didn't really do it, but they kind of did, I guess, with Caleb Martin. And so will Klay be forced out in some way of the starting lineup because the Mavs need to upgrade, or the Mavs need to get better, and the Mavs need to be better defensively there because they have to, again, just like the bigs conversation, they have to maximize their advantages in any way possible. So then that brings me to Max Christie. And I think for Max Christie, he's a big-time swing player for the Dallas Mavericks this season. Can Max Christie take any kind of leap for the Mavericks? Is he the next answer to replace Klay in the starting lineup? Because I think just looking at who he is as a player, can get his own shot a little bit, can run the pick and roll a little bit, can shoot the three, and has improved as a 3-point shooter, can defend pretty consistently, and is 22 years old. He is. Next season, he is 13 years younger than Klay Thompson. And you're going to ask a lot of that player because he's going to have to run around a lot. He's going to have to defend the best guard on the other team. You need that player in that starting spot and then closing spot to be somebody that you can rely on in that way. And I don't know that the Mavs can ask Klay Thompson of that next year. So can Max Christie be that guy? Can he score consistently enough to be that player? Or coming off the bench, can he make himself? I mean, you start looking at the rotation and you're like, all right, well, with Kyrie, Klay, PJ, well, let's even take Kyrie out for a second. Like, it may be hard for Max Christie to carve out a rotation spot for a little bit there. If the Mavs add a draft pick that they want to play, if they add another free agent guard or a trade for a guard, it might be hard for Max Christie to find minutes. So I think he's got to take a leap forward and prove himself to be essential to the Mavericks. Couple more wings. PJ Washington, does he still have an advantage at the 3? We knew at the 4 what PJ's advantage was going to be, and we talked about it all summer. We were excited to see PJ in that 5 lineup with Luka, Kyrie, PJ, Klay Thompson, and Dereck Lively. We're like, oh, he's just going to get so many post-ups against these 4s that he can drive by, and he's going to get these 3s that he can post up. But does he still have the same kind of advantage as a 3 instead of a 4? Because there's going to be less space. He's going to be asked to take more spot-up 3s. And it's just a different type of and there's nobody spoon-feeding him buckets as much anymore. And so does he still have the same kind of advantages? There's a lot we could talk about with that. Najee Marshall, can his shooting improve? Because it didn't this last year. It actually regressed. It's not something we've talked about a lot because there's been gestures at all the other things we had to talk about this year. But Najee Marshall last year for the Pelicans shot 39% from 3 on 2 a game. And we were like, okay, let's hope that becomes the norm for him, and that he improved his shot, and that he becomes a better 3-point shooter. This year, he shot 27.5% on 3.2 threes a game with Dallas. Not an improvement, a regression. A huge regression, actually. 11 percentage points down on his 3-point shot. And it was a crazy year, right? You throw all the stuff out. He was asked to do a lot. He's asked to be like a number 1 scorer for about 20 games there when Kyrie and AD were out. Luka was obviously traded. So put that with a grain of salt. But he was given a ton of wide open 3s because teams just let him be open. And teams are going to allow him to just take shots. And can he take advantage of that? For Caleb Martin, can his shooting bounce back? He shot 25% from 3 in 14 games for Dallas. He shot 37% on threes a game for Miami in 195 games. The thing that you want him to be able to do is to shoot the 3-point shot. I mean, it's kind of what he made his name on in the playoffs against the Celtics. He was hitting a bunch of 3s, and they need that. He could be a guy too that could step into that starting spot, I think, because he impressed me as a perimeter defender. I still don't like the Grimes trade for him, but I do think that Caleb Martin's a better perimeter defender, and I think that's something the Mavs can take advantage of. When Kyrie comes back, can Caleb Martin start for Klay Thompson? You bring more shooting off the bench, but you get that perimeter defender in the starting lineup. Then your defense is just rock solid. Caleb Martin, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, Dereck Lively, and then Kyrie. A great defense. The last 2, Omax. Can he carve out a role? I mean, it talks about Max Christie trying to find a spot. For Omax to try and find a spot, there's no 4 minutes for him. Because they're either going to Anthony Davis, who's playing 34 minutes a game, right? PJ Washington will slide up to the 4. Or they had to put Najee Marshall at the 4 a lot this year because they just had so many other wings and guards and people to try and get minutes. So for Omax, can he carve out any kind of role at all? And I don't know about that because I think this is not even about him as a player. It's just the roster and where it is right now. And for Dwight Powell, he's a player option, but I expect he'll come back. Who will outlast Dwight Powell? Will anyone outlast Dwight Powell? Not just on the roster, but in the organization as a whole. Thanks for hanging out with me on Locked On Mavs. We've got all kinds of shows next week. The lottery is coming up. And so Isaac and I will be previewing the lottery all next week. What if the Mavs get 1? What if they get 2? They have an 8% chance to get in the top 4. So we'll talk about all that kind of stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Again, we'll be back with so many more things. And we'll have everything covered for you here all throughout the summer. The text line, all the things in the description. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Peace.